Okay. Lori, thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you for having me. It's very exciting.
What is your story?
My story, that's a really loaded question, actually. No, but my swim story is I swam my whole life, and swam in college. And then after college, I was done with it. Took 7 years off and had moved to New York because I met my husband and he was a New Yorker and he had the better job. So I had to leave my job and I moved to New York. And I was walking by Y one day and like I just smelled the chlorine and I thought, okay, it's time. And I walked in and I joined, and my husband actually didn't believe that I swam in college because when we would go away, when we would, be anywhere, I wouldn't swim. I just wouldn't, because I think I missed it, but I knew that I couldn't be just in the water. I needed to be, it would just remind me of like a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But then once I got back in and I started swimming, it took no time for me to just get intimate with it again and just start swimming. I just started swimming I did workouts, but not for anything, just for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much how it went. And I loved everything about my life growing up swimming was involved. So it was something that I really missed that I didn't realize that I really missed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Where did you swim in college?
I swam for Salle University. It's in Pennsylvania. Nobody's ever heard of us. We swim against schools that people have heard of.
What was your event in college?
I was the 200 breaststroker.
Ah.
So I was not a distance swimmer at all. And I joked with my coach since then. I said, maybe you should have put me in the 500 or something. But he did train, breaststrokers trained with the distance swimmers, interestingly enough. We did a lot of distance work and a lot of long sets, but I just never did any distance stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. So then once you got back into swimming, when did you start swimming open water?
So once I got back into swimming, I was swimming at the Y, and there was this group that would come in probably about a half hour after I started. So I would get the first half of my workout in, and then the last hour I would swim with this random eclectic group of people. And I was talking to one of them one day and he said, what are you doing this weekend? And I said, oh, I'm going out east. We have a house out there. And he said, where? And I said, Amagansett. And he said, I have a house in Amagansett. Why don't you swim with us? And I was like, there's a pool? And he said, no, we swim open water. And I was like, thanks, but no thanks, just stick to the pool. And but then I met them and I started swimming. That's how I started swimming open water. And I actually, they still joke about it because I think I definitely have some attention issues because I was just bored, tweaky, freaked out all the time, like what's around me. But then once I found my rhythm in it, it was great. And then it was, why don't you do some pool competition? And I said, I have not been on a block since 1997, nor do I plan to be on a block ever again. And then somebody said, well, they have this every year. They have, this Montauk Swim Challenge, or they just started it. Why don't you do that? And I thought, well, why do that when we could just do the same swim? We swim it every day out here. But it was for charity. So I did the Montauk. It was a 2-mile challenge at the time. And I really didn't like it, but I loved it at the same time. Like I didn't like that feeling that I would get with the whole competitive piece of it, but I love the swim.
Yeah.
And so that's how I started open water. And that was back in, well, I started open water swimming in 2000, I guess, 7,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't really do any competing until 2009, maybe. And they were just, just short stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned 1997. Is that when you graduated from college?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I didn't swim in college, but that competition, like that stress of competition, and the way you were talking about the smell from the pool, like because I walked away from swimming after high school. It was just like, I'm not going to be in the Olympics. I didn't know what else there was. I lived in Colorado, so I was like, I'm done. But then I ended up working at the pool after a while, and I got into water polo and other stuff. But it's just funny the way you describe that, because I can so relate to it.
Yeah, it's just that it like hit me, and I was like, oh. But I mean, for me, college, so it was LaSalle's D1, and so I had the opportunity to swim with a lot of really amazing, talented swimmers, and we traveled all over, and it was such an awesome experience. But what my coach used to say to me, and I'm short, I'm 5'2", so I always get that. So I just felt like I really had to work to keep my spot there and appreciate being there. I think if I were to try to swim now in college, who knows if I would make it, because it's just different. But I always felt like I was just so appreciative that I was there. Mm-hmm. So my experience of it wasn't so much about the competitiveness or the race. It was more just everything else. I appreciated every single practice when we traveled for training trip. Like, it was just all really special, but for maybe different reasons than how other people experience it.
That's interesting. Yeah. I like that. So 2009, you start swimming open water. When did you start pushing marathon distances?
So the same group, I really have to break up with this group. I started thinking, the same group would go down to Bermuda every year for Round the Sound. Well, the coach would bring, he went with a couple people like a few years before, and then brought some more, and then brought some more. So then in 2011, I went to do my first Round the Sound 10K, and it was a disaster. I had actually had to go late because of a death in the family. So I flew in Saturday night. This is the story of my life with my swims too, because with the kids and juggling, I have very limited time. Yeah. But I flew in Saturday night. The race was on Sunday morning. I got in at like 9:30 on Saturday night, raced on Sunday morning. I was so incredibly nervous. I think I like took a goo. I had no idea what I was doing. I took it out way too fast. And the first rest stop was at 2 miles. I felt like there is no way that I can take another stroke. And this woman comes up and she's like, "Great pace, you want to swim together?" And I was like, "Thank you so much, yes." And she literally guided me through the rest of the swim. And then at the end, I kind of like eased up to let her put her, at the time it was wrists on like a carpet that they had on the side of a wall. And she stopped and she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "You go, thank you. You helped me. I wouldn't have been able to finish." And she said, "No, we'll do it together." And we put our wrists on the carpet together. And it was like, it still makes me want to almost cry, but it was awesome. But I thought, I was so happy I was done. And I remember saying to myself, I am never doing that again. Never. But then the next year, there I was, standing, being nervous, fiddling with my goggles. It's always about my goggles, and doing the same thing. And I'm like, how did I get here? Why am I doing this again? Why? And I realized it's the journey, and then the accomplishment. The actual swim part is never that great for me.
Interesting.
Because I'm very, people are like, "Did you see the fish? Did you see that beautiful, landscape?" I saw nothing. I saw nothing. I don't know what you're talking about. We had 2 totally different swims. So I'm very anxious especially with a 10K, because the 10K I feel like it's a sprint, and I don't really train for those.
Right. Yeah.
So it's
That's funny.
challenging.
Yeah. That's funny you talked about the group you have to break up with. Us. A few other people have told me about that, like that peer pressure has gotten them into marathon swimming. I think it's funny.
Yeah. It just kept on pushing.
Yeah. Yeah. And around the sound in 2010, that was my first marathon swim. So
Okay.
I beat you by a year.
We missed each other. Have you been back since?
No, I kind of had this fantasy of going back this year. I don't know that it would have worked. My kids are little, but I had them late. But then pandemic and whatever else.
This was
I had this 10-year fantasy for a while.
It's one of those, I mean, I think it's a great swim. I mean, obviously, and I go back to support it every year. It's easy for me to get to. But there's so many swims in so many places that and when you do have kids, and I certainly have had my share of, it's a constant trying to juggle and making sure that they're okay, that it's hard. You have to be really selective.
Yeah. How old are your kids?
They're old. They're getting there to 12 and 14. Okay. So, but I remember when I signed up for all 7 stages of 8 Bridges swim, the prep that I had to do, because I wasn't coming home every day, right? So the prep that I had to do before, I felt like that was going to help me in my training, because the staying up, the juggling, I had gotten little gifts for them. So every day they had something to open while I was gone. Mm-hmm. And I knew I'd be back after stage 4, because you have like a rest day, but then I was going to go away again. But, it's just really hard. But it does, I feel like it in some way, I don't know how, but it preps me it's part of my training.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Kid has a stomach bug. It's like, you're up all night. It's like, okay, now I have to do something uncomfortable. I have to swim it in the evening, or maybe I have to skip this day and I have to be okay with it. And that's really hard for me to do, but I feel like they shake it up a little bit.
Yeah. Well, there's a book I read a year ago or so by Travis Macy. He's an ultra marathoner in Colorado. He runs through, across the mountains and stuff. And he talks in this book, he talks about how having kids, he basically kind of had to adapt his mental training though, but he talks about how it's all good mental training, like getting through those hard spots with your kids. Yeah. But I guess, so for me, I feel like now, like swimming's like this release, like once my kids are all squared away and I finally can get to the water, just like, all I have to do now is swim. Do you feel that way?
And it is, it's like, I follow this woman. I'm not very good with Instagram and Facebook. I've actually kind of fallen off of it. I mean, I still have my account, but I don't do it. But I started randomly, you get these pop-ups. So I started following this woman on Instagram, and she's called Mom That Swims. Mm-hmm. And for me, I look at her stuff, and she has a son with cerebral palsy, and her release, and you could see it in her posts, and she's constantly taping herself swimming or doing her dry land, and that's her release. That's how she can handle everything else. And it's, for me, people like that and something like that is really inspirational.
Yeah. The first year I did In Search of Memphis when Phil first started it in 2011, I was doing it as a relay, and my relay partner, her son was severely autistic, and listening to her stories about everything, I was just like, oh my God, yeah, it's such inspiration. It just makes me so glad my kids are healthy.
Yes. Yes. And I'm still struggling. Yeah. And with healthy kids, I still feel like I'm a total mess.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. Well, power to your mom. You're doing awesome. How old were your kids when you did the 8 bridges, all the 8 bridges?
So I think I was trying to figure that out. I think my son was in third grade and my daughter was in first.
Okay. Okay. I have a couple of years.
That was very emotional.
Yeah, it's funny how, well, yeah, I like went and swam right after my son was like 1, and I tried to go to Lake Memphremagog, and I mean, he was 1 and my other one was 3, and it was like crazy making, like, what was I thinking? But like
Yeah.
there's a whole bunch of other stuff that happened that year where I felt like I somehow had the time to swim because I was laid off from my job. And so I was like, oh, I should have time to swim. But my second son, he just like needs me intensely. So which is like he's just turned 4 and he's still sometimes he won't let me go. Like, and it's really hard.
Yes, I know. Boys are so my son is the first. Boys are very needy. Mm-hmm. And then they are so low maintenance when they get older. And my daughter, who, she didn't make a peep, now all of a sudden, I thought it would be a little bit easier when they're older, but actually they talk back now. Yeah. And you can't just put them, you can't just contain them. It used to be like I could contain them, I could get a sitter, or they'd be in school and I could swim. And now it's like, can you drive me here? Can you drive me there? I'm in the car, at like 10:30 at night, and they're talking back to me, and you can't control them as easily. But my son is definitely the lower maintenance one.
Yeah. I'm glad I had your voice. I'm glad about that.
Oh God, it got easier.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go back to swimming. Okay. So
okay, swimming.
Another swimming mom. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna start calling you when I have questions. How do you describe the feeling of completing a marathon swim? What's that like for you? Especially you talked about kind of being frantic about the swimming and not really enjoying it.
I do. Like I said, I love the journey. I'm very disciplined when it comes to my workouts and my practices. And I think the reason why I do get so frantic is because because of the family life and work, and I can't do every swim that I want to do when I want to do it, right? So I pick, 1 or 2 special ones a year, and that's what my husband and I kind of thought was reasonable. And so, but there's all these sacrifices that you make during your training and that that other people are making when you actually get to the event part. So when I finish, it's never in my mind, oh, I'm just going to swim. And if I'm not into it, that's not an option. I'm going to finish no matter what. And so maybe I do put a lot of pressure on myself. So when I'm finished, there's just this feeling of relief, mixed in with just elation and gratitude, and I can't even explain it, but there's just so many emotions. Like, I can't believe it's over already, although when you're in the middle of it, you're like, why is this taking so long? Yep. Like, why does this seem like it's forever? So yeah, it's just all these mix of emotions. And then of course, after you shower, because the shower is the best part, I think about the shower actually when I'm like, the shower's going to be so much better if you just hang in there and finish. It's not going to be the same if you're crying in the shower.
That's right.
So by the time I get to the shower part, I'm like, I am ready to like party. And that's what I said. I told my my coach Bonnie when she came for Catalina, I was like, I want to party afterwards, and we're just gonna go, go out and just live it up. And we were all asleep in the room I finished in the morning. We were like in bed by like 5. Slept through the night. My husband went out with the kayaker. And that was my big celebration that I was going to do. But I have these intentions. The feelings are excitement. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah. And I feel like that buoys you sometimes to get to the finish is like that. I don't know. For me, I'm like a really big beer, something salty. Yeah. If you're not in water and, in the shower. Yeah. Like thinking forward to those things. So that helps get you through.
Absolutely. I say like if I could have chocolate, coffee, and a Guinness all at the same time.
That
Like,
sounds really good.
put the coffee, put the chocolate in the Guinness, put the Guinness in the coffee. I'll call it a mermaid and I'll drink it. And that would be like my dream, the stuff that I would want to have all at the same time.
That sounds amazing. We need to make this. I want it.
Good. When I open my coffee shop, that I'm going to have one of those.
Okay, I'm coming. All right, tell us about the swim you're most proud of.
It has to be the swim around Bermuda.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was about 2 years in the planning. I had it in my mind. So I have been everything with the swims that I've done, and I believe in, when I started marathon swimming, just working up to a swim after, it wasn't like, oh, I want to do a 20-mile swim and get in and do it. I just felt like I needed to understand open water, and I needed to understand things like feeding. And so after Bermuda, I did the swim around Key West because I wanted to see what 12 miles would feel like. I knew what 6 miles felt like. So for me, it's always like, well, I wonder if I could do that. I wonder what that would feel like.
Mm-hmm.
And so each experience has been very, very special at different, because it signified different parts of the swim journey, I guess. But Bermuda obviously I wanted to know what a 24-hour swim would feel like. I think Jamie Monahan, who's a good friend of mine, she's great. She had swam Lake Geneva, and I had been thinking about, I want to know what a 24-hour swim feels like. And my Catalina mentor, Tina Neal, who kept me in check with my training and everything, Tina was doing swims before doing swims was a thing. I saw that she had done like a 28-hour swim. So I thought, where would I want to be in the water for 24 hours? And by that time I had been to Bermuda every year since 2011. I knew I had made close ties with the people, and I knew that that's where I wanted to be. So that there was this whole excitement about it. I knew that Sean O'Connell had done it, 40 years earlier, but that it hadn't been attempted. And I just approached the guys that are the swim guys on the island, and I said, what do you think? And my friend Nick, who runs the Bermuda Open Water with my friend Mike Cash, Nick said, well, I think you're very keen, as it's coming on the 40th anniversary of Sean's in August. And they got together a group of people that really are Bermudian, or that moved to Bermuda and live there and are passionate about everything about the island and care. And we had crazy conditions, but I needed to go. I had been training. I did 8 bridges, and thinking that if I complete all 7 stages of 8 bridges, then I know that I would be ready to do Bermuda the next year. Mm-hmm. So I had been planning, so about a month before I was supposed to swim Bermuda, we found out that my husband had a heart defect and needed open heart surgery. Oh, God. And the surgery was scheduled a week after Bermuda, and we were going to push it up, but of course, and I didn't want to do it after because I didn't know what condition he would be in. I mean, it was just a very scary time. And I said, I'm trained up for this. How we planned the moon phase and everything else to the best of this is the best time. And so we need to try to go for it. And of course, the week before I'm watching, and the wind is building and it's building and it's building. And I get to the island, and before I left, they were like, well, I don't know if it's going to be a go. And because the wind was just building. Mm-hmm. And when I landed, we went right to a meeting. It was about 10 o'clock at night. And they said, well, we have a window, but we're going to have to go tomorrow. And I was like, okay, let's do it. I'm ready. Let's just do it. If we can't wait the day and a half, well, let's just do it. So, and then that night we had really bad headwinds from the whole north shore of the island, which is 16-mile stretch. We had, I think 12 to 14-mile headwinds and 3-foot swells. It was crazy. And they were having trouble with controlling the boats. One of the boats was took on water. They hit it was just chaos. And they just thought for sure that it was going to end. And I just knew that everybody that was there was doing it because they believed in this and it was exciting for them. And some of them were around and remembered when Sean O'Connell had swam around the island and the excitement, and it just kept me going. So it was more than just getting in, doing the swim, and because the conditions were rough, I made it to 21 hours, but not 24. But maybe one day I'll see what it's like to swim over 24 hours.
Yeah, so it was only 21 hours to get all the way.
It was 21, yeah. Wow. And yeah, so, and the one pilot always says, I wonder what you would have done if it was a good condition, day. And I said, well, my brother-in-law says if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, then every day would be Christmas. You can't pick your day. You can't. You have to go. And I wouldn't want to try to say like, oh, this day is going to be perfect. There's something exciting about, we have war stories, right? And so that's what makes it so special. And that's why, I love that swim. But really every swim I have made connections or made lasting relationships that make that swim special.
Yeah. So how old were your kids when you did Bermuda?
That was 2016. So I didn't know I was going to have to do math. I'm really bad at it, but
2016 was 4 years ago. So 10 and 12? No, 10 and 8.
Yeah.
Right? Wow.
Yes, you're right. 10 and 8.
You leave the family home and you just went on your own.
Yeah. So my husband came, and same with really all of my swims. If anybody comes, it's my husband. And the reason why you'll just go into mom mode, right? So and I learned that when I got back from stage 4 of 8 bridges, I was cold. I was exhausted. I had been going. I was so excited to come home and have my time with them and have a break. And I walked in, and it's a long story, but I ended up having to drive a swimmer that wasn't doing well into the city first and then driving home. So it took me like 2.5 hours to get home. And I finally get in the door, and it was right at the time when they hadn't eaten. And I don't know where my husband was, but it was like I never left. Mom, can you get me? Mom, can you make pierogies? Mom, can you help me with my homework? Ma. And I just thought, like, I can't wait to get back in the water again. I can't believe I'm saying this, but stage 5 is the beast, and I can't wait to just get back in. So it would just be, you'd be in mom mode. And I feel like before the swims, I'm a wreck, and I like to try to focus. So and it's the cost too. I mean, when I did Greece, we could make a family trip of it, but it would always have to be after the swim. And
no, I hear you. Tell me about Greece.
Oh my gosh, Greece was like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, the movie. So my friend Janine Cyril, who you had interviewed, she came with me. And so this is just my schedule of when I go to do swims, because of the time factor. We flew out Wednesday night. We landed Thursday morning. We had to take a bus, which the bus, we missed the one bus to get to Kalamata, and we had to wait 3 hours for the other bus. We get to Kalamata. We traveled all day. Thursday night, we get to Kalamata around 10:30. Got to the hotel, slept, woke up on Friday, did a training swim, went to the pre-race meeting, swam Saturday, and then Sunday traveled back and flew out on Monday morning. It took all day to travel back. It was crazy, but it was great. Greece was awesome. The people were so nice. I learned how to say thank you in Greek. And because that's all I could say, because everything else is really confusing. The conditions were crazy in Greece, and it's really interesting because Friday it's almost like clockwork. It's completely calm, and then by 1 o'clock the water just kicks up. So I kind of knew, and they made it, because that swim, they've had some difficulties the years before with the course because it was a point to point. They did a turnaround, and I don't like turnarounds because you're either going to get there and you're going to say, oh my gosh, I'm here already, or oh my God, I have to go back. And Greece was the latter. Oh my gosh, I have to, I have to swim back now, because the wind started picking up. We hit that buoy, and when we did the turn, it was just complete, just wind and waves. And but I do have I guess a funny story about not judging a book by its cover. So what I like about swimming in other countries is, I get very nervous, and when you go to other countries, everybody's just kind of speaking their own languages, and you're just kind of left to do your own thing and in your own thoughts, and don't know if somebody's trash talking, you don't know, because they might not be speaking your language. And so I love that. It's just like the water, and you just get in and go. And you can't complain to your kayaker sometimes, or your boat pilot, because they don't speak English.
Right.
Not all the time, but in 2 places that I went. So we were doing they do like a lottery, and they call a number, and then that number is associated with a boat pilot, and then they call, and then somebody goes and picks a number. I forget how they did it, but it was all very random. But when my boat pilot was up, and then I picked my number, everybody started laughing. Or the boat pilots, they're all these like fishermen and stuff, and they start like laughing and saying stuff in Greek, and I'm like, what are they doing? So I asked one of the swimmers girlfriends, who was Greek, and she said, oh, they're just having fun. They said they told the boat pilot, you got the little girl, you're going to be on the water all day. And he's like this elderly gentleman, and and he seemed very gruff. And so he pulls up in his boat, and Janine loads, and we're swimming, and I'm swimming, and she's being a cheerleader. And I didn't know if I had faith in this guy or what, but because I didn't really know it was like all open, water. And then I'm coming straight on to the buoy, and this other swimmer is coming in all far this way. So after that, I thought, I totally believe in this guy. And Janine, who told me later, he was so proud. He was so proud of us, because we were doing well. And, everybody was kind of like saying, you got the little girl, you're going to be on the water all day. And so every time I stopped for a feed, and I don't like to know, I tell my crew, I don't want to know what time it is. I don't like to know where I am. Janine would feed me. And then she would turn around to like put it away, and he was going, third, go, you know, or like whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, okay, I'm going. But after I flew the Bermuda and the American flag, and then after he was so proud, he took the American flag. So I made my old fisherman boat pilot very proud that day. And then I met people that I still keep in touch with that are great from different parts of the world. And yeah, that was a beautiful swim. That was, yeah.
What was the distance of that one?
They shortened it. I think it was a 25K.
Yeah. That's still a big long swim.
14K maybe. It was, or no, it was supposed to, sorry, 30K. And Ibiza I think was 28K. Yeah, I think Greece was 30K. Yeah.
What fun experiences. Man, I could hear your swim stories all day. We're going to go
back
to
a question. A lot.
How's the pandemic been for you?
It was hard in the beginning, I think, you know, but there was something that was nice about it. I don't mean to say nice about it in any way other than how it affected me in my daily life. But, you know, it was kind of nice that when you're told nobody can do anything, you know, and so it was a time for me and the family to just kind of be with each other in the house and, you know, just be together. And was trying to figure out creative ways for us to be active. And I think it was, you know, I just figured out different things to do. And yeah, and then you start to get a little itchy, you know, at being told that you can't do anything. Right. But in the beginning, I think it was nice that kind of slowed everything down.
Right. Yeah. I like to say, to some degree, I feel like I became a better mom because my kids were home with me, and I wasn't able to just get them to, like, I just get to preschool, get them to school, you know, like I had to, we're just like, we're going to work through this. And so yeah, there's been some good things about it. It's okay to say.
Exactly. I'm trying to look at the positive, you know, that everybody had to slow down, and that meant that we were, you know, they weren't running off to be with friends or off to a sports thing, and we were watching movies together and doing more family stuff. So that was really nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any thoughts on how we can include more people in the sport?
I don't know, because everybody that I talk to, when they hear that I swim, they say, that's the hardest one for me. I'm a triathlete, and the swimming portion is, or they'll say, why don't you do triathlons? You'd be so good. And I think I hit parked cars when I ride bikes, and I cannot run to save my life. I would maybe do well in the swimming part, but there's two other events that are in that piece. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of more that kids are being exposed to with open water, and I think that's great. That and maybe it's just because of New York where I am, that we're by the water, so I see more kids, you know, more events that include younger kids. But I think the kids are getting an introduction into it earlier than I ever did. So I don't know, to include more people.
That's true. It becomes a tricky, like, I started this question kind of, you know, back with when the Black Lives Matter movement was coming back again. And and I was thinking of it when we talk about it, like if we're trying to keep it marathon swimming specific, like it's hard because there's costs to doing, you know, marathon swimming. And So anyway, it's just interesting to get people's thoughts on it. And when you get to like the access issue with pools, and I mean, that's like the kind of another beast, but I just like to see what people have to say if they have thoughts on how we can.
I'm sorry, I failed in that.
No, you're A-okay. You're A-okay.
I'm more of, I think it's more for me, how do you get, I would love for everybody to know how to swim.
Yeah.
You know, forget the marathon swimming piece,
Right.
because I feel like the way I look at it, it's an individual, what drives a person. It's very personal, right? So why I maybe do it might be different than why somebody else does it. And you really have to want to spend that much time in the water. You know, there are certain things that make, I think, marathon swimming unique. I would love to be able to figure out how to get everybody to learn how to swim, you know, is the first step. And then figure out what they enjoy in swimming once they get there.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a very, very, very valid point. We can't all just make everybody marathon swimmers. Cookie cutter them out. That wouldn't be any fun anyway. What advice would you give to an aspiring marathon swimmer?
I would say take your time. And I see a lot of people that they want to do something, and they maybe don't do it when they could do it to the best of their ability. Or I was very lucky in the sense that when I started marathon swimming, I would do a lot of reading and ask a lot of questions. And when I wanted to do Catalina Channel, a friend of mine was friends with Lynn Cox, and she gave advice, and I was so embarrassed and so devastated, because what she said was, you know, you're not ready to swim Catalina Channel. It takes people years to cold water acclimate, and you really need to, and some people never will. Maybe you'll never be a cold water swimmer. And I was so embarrassed that I thought, wow, I can't believe that I thought I could do this channel and I need to put in a lot more work. And not everybody is like that. Some people are just cheerleaders, and I think that that's great as long as people have a healthy understanding of what they're getting into. So I would say work up to it. I did 2 mile swims, then once I felt comfortable with that, I did the 6 mile, and then I did the 12 mile, and then a little bit in increments, so that you can understand your training and you can understand what works feeding wise and what doesn't, and kind of learn, because I feel like all of that makes the journey and makes each swim that much greater.
Yep. What marathon swimmer has inspired you?
God, there's so many. I'd say Lynn Cox, of course. I feel like she's just a classic. Jamie inspires me, Jamie Monahan, because, she, just kind of goes by the beat of her own drum, and does these thoughtful, meaningful swims for her that are meaningful to her, which I think I like that. And Tina Neal, who I had mentioned, I think she's the epitome of a marathon swimmer. I don't know, there's so many. I mean, and then my friends, Sarah Thomas, obviously she's amazing. Caroline Block, I love Caroline. Me and actually when I was training for 8 Bridges, we did a girls trip, and we all had different things that we were training for. Janine, Jamie, Caroline, Devin, and it was just this beautiful experience that I was doing 6-hour swims, somebody else was doing 4-hour swims, but we just had this really cool girls bonding weekend. And so, yeah, there's so many swimmers that inspire, and I don't even know their names because I don't really follow too much.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to get, you know.
Yeah, I do know. It's like, it's hard. The more you're like in it, then you're like, you want to like, you like doing more. And when you kind of have to like.
Exactly. And when you can't, so I just try to know what I want to do. And I might hear things here and there, but I try not to follow it, because I wouldn't want to ever do something that's not, that doing it for the wrong reasons, doing it because, you know, oh, somebody did it and I want to do it. I want to learn about the place or learn about the thing and do it because it sounds to me like something I want to do.
Yeah. I know what you mean. That's awesome. Thank you so much for being our guest today, Lori. I really
Thank you for having me.